All right, beautiful people, beautiful people, beautiful people. So real quick lesson, right? So very often, probably about 85% of the time when I'm speaking to potential clients, one of the first questions that they ask me is, do you use e-collars, right? Do you use invasive tools? Now, 90 to 95% of the time, I don't, right? But that doesn't mean that I'm against those particular tools. I just think that they're for specific dogs and specific situations, right? Most dogs, for the most part, don't need an e-collar, especially your regular everyday pet that already has anxiety problems, that already has reactivity problems. An e-collar, in most cases, is not going to fix that, right? So when you're dealing with specific dogs that have specific behaviors that are what I call excessive, right? Excessive prey drive. But these dogs also have to have a more of a harder mentality, right? So your true working dogs, your dogs that are really bred to do work, which means they have a higher pain tolerance, right? They have a higher drive, they have a higher will, they have a higher determination, right? E-collars can be very beneficial in situations like that, right? So let me show you what I'm talking about. So pan this way, son. So you see my boy Mister here, right? You see he keeps pacing back and forth because he's obsessing over the rabbits. Now, I don't want my dogs to be obsessive over my livestock, specifically the birds, because at some point I want to let the birds free range, right? I don't want to keep them inside of here. Now, the rabbits are going to be in a kennel that I'm going to have off the ground, right? So they're not really going to have access to the rabbits like that. And then I actually may use the rabbits to train them to kill raccoons and things of that nature. So the rabbits are going to serve their purpose, but specifically the birds, I don't want them killing the birds, right? So this is where I'm going to use the e-collar because I'm multitasking. I'm doing 4 or 5 different things at one time. I'm cleaning out the kennels, I'm feeding dogs, I'm watering the dogs. You know, I'm doing a lot of stuff at one time. So I can't sit here and correct him every single time, right? I can't just focus all of my energy on making sure he's not trying to knock the kennel down to get to the animals. So what I'm going to do is use the e-collar, right? So let me show you how we're going to do it, right? First, I'm going to make sure it's on. Okay, it's on. So right now, it's a little dirty right now. So right now we got it on vibrate, right? And this is another thing. You got to pay attention to the camera, son. It has different settings, right? So you have the sound, you have the beeping noise, you have the vibrate, and then you have the electric shock, right? So this is where you have to learn, this is where you have to use discernment, right? And this is the issue as to why, most people ask me, do you use e-collars and other invasive, type of correction tools? Now, right now, here's the other thing, there's so much I want to say. I'm trying to make sure I say it systematically, right? You can use the e-collar as a positive reinforcer. You can also use the e-collar as a negative reinforcer, right? It all depends on what you're trying to do. So in this situation, I'm going to use the e-collar as a negative reinforcer to let the dog know that this behavior is unacceptable, right? Now, different settings, right? You can use the same e-collar in different settings to get 2 different results, right? So I'm going to use the shock, right? Because I want the shock to represent bad behavior, right? Now, the vibration or the sound, right, can be used to represent good behavior, right? It all depends on how you want to condition your dog. That's all it's about. It's about conditioning your dog. Whatever you condition your dog to is what your dog is going to do, right? So I'm going to condition my dog to the shock being a correction, right? It will be the equivalent of me popping the leash, letting him know that the behavior is unacceptable, right? So I'm going to put it on the shock feature. Okay. Now, the next thing we have to do is choose the level, right? And this is where you have to use discernment, right? So I'm going to start with the lowest setting, right? Because, again, you don't want your correction to outweigh the behavior, right? So I have to figure out for him what's the lowest setting I can do for him to understand that the behavior is unacceptable. Because again, if you go, right, so if you look, I don't know if you can see it on the camera. I know it's pretty dirty, right? But the levels go all the way up to 100. I don't know if you can see it. So right now I have it on level 13, right? So I'm going to take it down to a level 10 because I'm hoping, I'm hoping that level 10 would be enough for him to feel it and for him to make the association that every time you go over there and look, so show pace back and forth like this, right? You're going to feel that shock. And eventually he's going to learn to avoid coming over here and doing this, right? Now, if he just comes over here and just kind of chill and relax, I ain't got no problem with that. But when he's doing this, that I don't want, right? Specifically with the birds, right? So let's put this on. Let me show you how we're going to do this. Come here. All right, I got to adjust it. Let me adjust it real quick. So you got to come over here. Come over here. Yep, let me adjust it real quick.
Georgia.
Huh?
What are you doing outside? Georgia. What's she doing?
Give me a minute, I gotta adjust it. All right, Mister, come here. Come here. All right, so now, Tone, no. And he's jealous because he wants to get out. All right, so the first thing you gotta make sure, that the metal prongs have contact with the skin, because if not, they're not gonna feel it, right? So now what I'm gonna do is just a tester to see if he feels it, right? Okay, so you see how he ran away? So I'll take it now. You see how he ran away? That lets me know that he feels it, right? It doesn't have to be extreme. He doesn't have to jump and yell and, like it doesn't have to be excessive. It just has to be a quick redirection to let him know that, hey, every time I go over here and I act like this towards the animals, he's going to feel that shock. Now, eventually, right? Because I know the next question is going to be, well, how long do you need to e-collar for? As long as it takes for him to learn that the behavior is unacceptable. Once I see that he comes out, right? When I open that kennel and he doesn't run directly over there and start pacing back and forth and being excessive about, trying to get to the animals, then I know that he's learned his lesson, right? So again, training is not about doing something a few times and then the dog will do it forever. Humans don't even do that. So why do we expect dogs to do it, right? So we can't expect dogs to do something that humans don't even do themselves, right? So you have to hold dogs accountable the same way you have to hold humans accountable, right? But what training is about, it's about communication, right? It's about communication. And once you teach a dog the proper way, right, then your dog is trained. Once they understand what you're asking them to do, then your dog is trained, right? That's what training is about. Now, where training falls apart is when the owners don't consistently hold the dogs accountable for the things that the trainer has taught the dog to do, right? So anyway, just wanted to give that quick lesson, right? Obviously, if you guys have any questions, hey, Tone, leave it. If you guys have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. As you see, I'm putting up the shade blockers, so the sun doesn't beat the dogs up to death. And, we're going to keep building, man. So anyway, Brandon, Braylon, the Structure K9 Academy, we out.